Many Americans in their 20s and 30s may have given up on the dream of home ownership. A new survey finds nearly 9 million millennials expect to be permanent renters. That's up more than 1 million people from a year ago. Nearly half of millennial renters say they have not saved a dime for a down payment to buy a home. CBS News business financial analyst Jill Schlesinger is here to explain why and what this means for the housing market. What is the biggest hurdle, or what are the biggest hurdles that you see facing millennials when it comes to home ownership?
You know, we used to say, oh, they're different than us. It's a different generation. And actually, it's an old school thing. They want to buy homes, but the homes they're seeking are not affordable.
Yeah.
So many of them don't have high enough pay. They are burdened with so much student loan debt, $1.6 trillion outstanding of student loan debt. So lack of affordability, this debt, you can understand why some really feel locked out of the housing market.
Why are there fewer affordable homes on the market now?
Yeah, well, this is a very interesting thing because after the financial crisis, what we know is there was a ton of homes out there, right? A lot of foreclosed homes. Well, a bunch of investors in private equity firms gobbled up all that inventory. They took those homes off the market and they turned them into rentals, which is what people wanted. But those homes actually have remained permanently off the market. We also know that many older Americans are actually what they're calling aging in place. They're not moving out of their big house where they raise their families. They're sticking around. Last year, we have a statistic just out yesterday from the Census Bureau where we have just 9.8% of Americans moving. That is the lowest level of people moving since 1947. Wow. So homes are just not abundant right now.
Meanwhile, many millennials are moving from the country to the city looking for places to stay. There aren't that many of them. Why are particular big cities especially difficult?
This is obvious with the coasts, right? We know that there are tons of people flocking to places like New York and San Francisco, and in LA. In those areas, we see a real lack of affordability. But some of the strange thing, I guess, in the cities that pop up on the list where people say, I really don't think I'm ever going to own, Detroit and St. Louis also on that list. And so when you look San Jose, San Francisco, New York, and LA, that makes sense. Detroit, St. Louis, and Portland, Oregon, maybe not as much. And I think this has a lot to do with people just not making enough money, that lack of affordability.
Where's the tipping point when you know whether it's smarter to rent or buy?
You know, I'm such a boring old certified financial planner that I'm going to tell you that you've got to run the numbers. Because, look, you may be a millennial in Detroit and be able to afford to own a home, but you do have to start with what can I afford, and not just how much is this mortgage, the principal, the interest, excuse me, and the taxes, but also what about the upkeep of a home? 1 to 3% of that purchase price every year.
I'm a renter, but I would love to buy a home one day. When you look at that number, 20% is what they tell you,
down payment,
you need to get for the down payment. Is that always the case, or what's your advice with that? If you don't have the 20%, should you not even be looking?
It's not going to be good news.
No. I'm going to give you a little bit of the good news, bad news. The good news is that if you've got a steady job, you probably can get away with putting down less than 20%, but you will be paying private mortgage insurance, and that can be anywhere from 0.3 to over 1% of the total loan value. And that means that you really have this extra part of your payment. You also have to be very careful. You've got to monitor the rules of your particular private mortgage insurance, because as soon as you get to 80% equity, you want to go back to the lender and say, hey, lift that PMI off my loan amount so I can actually have freer cash flow. Look, buying and renting, there really is a distinction also in terms of flexibility of being a renter, opportunity, but we know that people like to nest. So we don't want to I don't want to say that buying's a terrible deal. I just think that many people, you should be comfortable renting until it feels okay for you financially.
It's a big change, though, in the way people live,
Oh, yes, absolutely.
All right, Jill Schlesinger for us. Jill, thank you very much.